Okay, so I'm going to make a video on 5 factors um, that play a role in someone committing the act of homosexuality. And before I make that, tell you the 5 factors that play a role. And this is one based on my own personal walk. So um, obviously, there are many more factors that can play a role, and each circumstance situation varies from person to person. But note that there's a difference between um, these factors and reasons. And to commit an act, there can be thousands and thousands of reasons as to why someone commits a certain act. But when it comes to the desire, and what that pretty much means is that there's a difference between the desire and the act. And I'll explain. The word homosexual means same-sex desires. Homosexuality is the act of engaging in homosexual behavior. So the action itself, um, the action itself, uh, will. There are many reasons why someone can do it. They could do it for money. They could do it for desperation, out of curiosity. Um, there are still you can name so many reasons as to why someone committed an act, and that goes for any act. Why do you eat? Why do you drink? Why do you wear this? Why do you do any act? There can be many reasons, but when it comes to the desire, per se, how is it that someone has same-sex desires? All about the wiring, and how do one develop these desires, because some people have them and some people don't have those desires. So how do you? So basically, I'm going to give 5 factors or variables that contribute to how someone can develop these desires, and hope that it helps someone. One, um, one variable or one factor is your peers. Your peers, when you're young, they play a very instrumental role in how you see yourself, how they treat you. It plays a very big role. Your parents, how your parents view you, how your parents treat you, that also reiterates your peers. Also, how society views what society views things as, that also plays a big role. What you see in society, and that varies from culture to culture. Um, the fourth thing, child abuse. Abuse can be sexual abuse. Um, there's so many variant. There's so many types of abuse that children go through. But the abuse that I'm referring to specifically is sexual abuse, and that plays a big role as it pertains to it's basically another factor as to why how someone can develop these desires. Um, and then the last thing are insecurities. These insecurities play a tremendous role. It's probably one of the biggest and most important things. And if you understand the insecurity part to it, it would essentially unravel everything. Everything gets unraveled if you get to the part of your insecurity. So when you get to figure out what specifically are you seeking, are you, uh, what specifically is on your heart as it pertains to the individual that you quote unquote are attracted to. What is it about that person? And when you realize, why am I attracted to this person? Because of this. And then you see and you start to backtrack where it came from, you realize it's usually an insecurity that you have within yourself. And so let me just give a synopsis or a breakdown of each factor once again. So the peers basically are peers are those little kids who are taunting. In society today, we call it cyberbullying. So kids are killing themselves. Kids are doing all sorts of things because of the abuse and the torment that the kids put them through. So, for example, a kid who is not as mature as others, but in the same grade, he's underdeveloped, and he has a higher pitched voice. Um, Automatically, someone can call him, "Oh, you're gay," because your voice is high pitched when he hasn't even hit puberty yet, and that can trigger, and that then, along with other factors of insecure, and then that triggers insecurities, and it just spirals out of control. One thing, this is how it is. It's all about piling on, piling on. I'll explain what I'm talking about when I say piling on a little later in the video. The second thing is your peers. Your peers, your parents. Your parents play an instrumental role in your life, where how and what direction they put you in, and what things they give you vision to, the things that they allow in your space, the things they don't allow in your space. It definitely can play a factor as to which direction you start heading, and the things you like and the things you don't like. And so, in the case of homosexuality and developing these desires, if that kid who was taunted and teased in in high school or primary school from all these kids, and now he's insecure, and he's like now questioning things, he's never even thought about having sexual desires for the same sex, and then he brings this to his parent, and his parents is so pro gay, all this. Guess what? He's gonna now feel as though this might be what's going on with him, and then he's going to be more inclined to lean in that direction, and he's going to find solace, because within the community, it's like come one, come all. It's like an open door. The gates of hell is wide. It's very like big. Anyone, anyhow, any, like whatever your issue is, if you want to be a part, you can be within the community. If you want to be in that mess, come on, you're allowed. That's how it works there. So it's very easy to fall into that trap and find somewhere to fit in, because everyone fits in. Um, and that's the driver there. So you have your peers, your parents, and then you have society. Society, I think, did I talk about society right? No, society basically teaches you, like, people look at society and what society says yes and what society says no, and then they follow. We're sheep. Well, we are. Many people are sheep. They don't have their own mind to think for themselves freely, and therefore, when you have society teaching you this is what's right and this is what's wrong, you're going to fall into that trap, and the media plays a role into it, and then it just starts to spiral out of control, and it's just a sad situation, but it's real. It's uh, a real deal, and someone who would probably not be put too much thought into something would be more inclined to push in a direction if society accepts it. Look at what's happening in society today, because now society says that being gay is okay. Look at I'm out. I'm coming out. I'm coming out. Everyone's like coming out of some closet. Everyone is supposedly not hiding that they have these sexual desires anymore, and it it's just one of those things where a lot of you can come out and come in and do all what you have to do, but at the end of the day, sin is sin, perversion is perversion. Your issues are your issues, and a lot of people just don't want to face them. And this is the one of the biggest problems that we have, where it's hard to even recognize what the problem is, because it's so deep rooted. It's all so spiritual. It's all things that are not tangible, personality traits. Things that's something that physically you can't touch. This is something that how and then you insecurities. These things you cannot touch them. They're all spiritual. So when you start playing around with these things that are happening in the background in your mind, then you wonder how you fall. But it's pretty clear, if you were to just take a step back and rest in Christ and get on that narrow path and take a step back from your own situation and really dissect your life and do soul searching as we're called to do. Really take a time, get it refined, and get your life in order. And um, so, oh yeah, I think did I mention already about child abuse? If I didn't, I'm going to know. Child abuse. Child abuse is really big. It's very common among people within the community that have that are it's that have the desires that are more inclined to keep it stay in that trap. Um, Main reason being, I don't really know specifically what it is that triggers what triggers in the brain um, for one person to have those desires um, pronounced versus another person still being able to live a normal life after being abused. But one thing I could say is that many people that I've came in contact with, many, have all had that one thing, myself included, being abused as a child. And abuse, like I said, it can come in many different forms, but for all intents and purposes, it's the sexual abuse is what I'm referring to for myself, and it played a negative role, and obviously, which led to me falling and living a very miserable life until I started following Christ and uh, started to understand and free myself from. Well, I wasn't doing any of the freeing, but acknowledging the issues, and every time I acknowledge an issue or a problem, God would take away a burden. He would remove an issue or a problem away from me, and that is very powerful. And lastly is insecurities. I talked about this already, how things pile on top of each other, and that's exactly what's happening when it comes to insecurity. So let's say, for example, if you're insecure about, like I was insecure about being so skinny, I was like the little small guy, and because of that insecurity, my desire was to be bigger. And guess what? Because I wanted to be bigger, it just wasn't happening. So what was my next best option? To be around people who were bigger, and that meant being around guys who were bigger than I was, and therefore that turned into a completely disastrous situation. But there's more to it. But for all intents and purposes, that's enough. God bless. Take care.